In the beginning, an emergency is announced at the hospitals in Mexico, as many people get injured due to ongoing riots and protests against the rich class. During the same time, an elite class wedding of Marianne and Alan is held in one of the posh areas of the country. Many people join the wedding and congratulate the couple on getting married. Meanwhile, Marianne's mother Rebecca gets ready in her room, but observes that the water in the tabs has suddenly turned green. She calls her husband Ivan to investigate, but they can't find anything. She asks her servant Marta to be careful, as she thinks someone has brought the green paint into the wedding, and she is concerned, as people in ongoing riots are using the same. Many high-profile guests, including Victor, a member of government authorities, also join the wedding to congratulate the family. After a few minutes, Rebecca tells Marianne that they might get a new contract from Victor, but she is not interested in the business discussion during her wedding ceremony. Another couple arrives at the wedding, but the girl is all covered up in paint, and they tell everyone that they got attacked by the protesters on their way. Everyone gets concerned about the changing situation in the city, but security staff ensures that their area is far away from the insurgencies. Soon, Rebecca is informed that one of her former employees, Roland, has shown up and is asking to meet her. She talks to him, and he informs her that his wife Elisa is sick and immediately needs surgery. He took her to the public hospital, but they prefer the injured patients. He is forced to take her to the private clinic, where he needs to pay up front, but he does not own a credit card and needs her help. Although he used to work for them almost 8 years ago, but requests her to lend some money, which he would return at the earliest. As they talk, Victor, along with his family, leaves due to security reasons. Rebecca agrees to help her and gets some money from Ivan and Daniel and gives it to him, but it's not enough for his wife's treatment. He requests more, but she refuses to give it to him and leaves to rejoin the party. While standing there in despair, Roland spots Marianne, who warmly welcomes him and asks about Elisa. He tells her about his problem and that her mother helped him, but the money is not enough. She comes back to ask Daniel for more money for him, but he talks to Roland and asks him to leave the house, as he won't give him anything else. Marianne overhears him talking and feels sorry for Roland. Being a kind soul, she decides to lend him some money from her personal savings, but finds out her mother has changed the password to the safe. She talks to her father about it, but he is also not in the favor of her idea, as he thinks she might waste her money this way. She also discusses it with Alan, but gets the same response. After being disappointed by her family, she comes over to talk to Roland again, but the guards inform her he already left the house. She talks to Marta's son Christian, who confirms Elisa's condition, as he is her neighbor, so she asks him to take her to Roland's house. As soon as Christian and Marianne leave the house, the judge arrives and informs her that all the streets in the area are blocked, and she barely made it in time. As she requests them to start the ceremony, Rebecca starts looking for the bride and the groom. She finds Alan, but there is no sign of Marianne, so she asks Marta to find her. While looking for her, the guard tells her that Marianne already left with Christian. She calls him, but Marianne takes the phone and tells her about going to Elisa's house. Meanwhile, the radio airs the news that the situation has gotten intense, and people are requested to stay at their homes. Soon, they are also stopped by the police, who inform them that all the streets are closed, and they should go back. Christian suggests going back to the house as well, but Marianne does not agree, as she wants to help Elisa. They hear the news that the protesters have blocked the roads, but there is still no response from the authorities. Back at the house, some strangers barge in, after jumping from the walls, and start threatening everyone. Ivan calls the security, but realizes they also joined hands with the protesters. Daniel thinks they might be in for the robbery, so he offers his belongings, but they start shooting people. Everyone is forced to gather inside the house, while Rebecca is separated from the rest of them, and asked to open her safe. She agrees to do it, but still gets shot, while the rest of the servants start collecting other precious items from the house. While hiding in the closet, Marta calls Christian and asks him not to come back to the house. He gets worried and starts asking questions, but she is attacked by one of the protesters, who takes her and Daniel's wife with them. In the meantime, Marianne and Christian continue their journey, but someone throws the green paint on their car and start asking Marianne to step outside the car. Alan asks one of the guards about Marianne, but he threatens to kill his mother if he asks any more questions. They throw different paints everywhere in the house and continue looting the place and trashing everything that comes their way. Many people, including Rebecca and Daniel's wife, get killed in the attack. On the other hand, Christian hides Marianne in the back seat, and starts driving the car, while making it away from the chaotic streets. They arrive at Roland's house, where Christian tries to call back home, but he tells the phone lines are dead. Roland gets worried about Marianne, but Christian tells him he wanted to take Elisa to the hospital. Marianne comforts Elisa, and assures her that they will take her to the hospital, but she gets worried after seeing that the protesters have trashed everything. After finding no way back home, Christian decides to take her to his house for a while. Back at the house, Marta somehow survives, and makes her way out, after passing through the dead bodies of those who became the victim. The next morning, injured are taken to the hospital, and the army announces a curfew in the city. Marianne asks Christian to take her back home, so he goes outside to have a look at the situation, but is stopped by the army. He brings them home, and tells about Marianne, to which they assure him to take her back, and asks her to come with them, while he is forced to stay back. In the car, Marianne tries to call someone at the house, but finds out there is no service. Soon, the soldiers take all her belongings, including the phone. The army starts collecting the dead bodies, and rescuing the wounded, while Marta eventually arrives at her home, where Christian tells him some soldiers took Marianne back to the house. Meanwhile, Marianne is taken to a camp, where she sees soldiers torturing the other detainees. They start investigating everyone, asking about their names, addresses, only to find out who is rich, and who is not. Daniel is informed about his mother and wife's funeral, but he starts crying for his loss. TV airs news about some kind of new order, and tells that the army is setting up very strict curfews to make sure everything settles down. Marianne faces a horrible situation in the camp, as she, along with the other women, is abused by the security staff. It is announced that the transit will be open for 2 hours, so Roland decides to go to the hospital. He steps outside the house, but is stopped by the army, who does not let him go further, as the streets are still closed. Ivan is brought back from the hospital, but he gets worried about Marianne, to which Victor assures him they are trying their best to find her. Almost a month goes by, so Alan's mother Pilar thinks Marianne will be dead by now, as they could not find any clue, but he does not believe it. In the camp, they are forced and tortured to record messages for their families, asking them to fulfill their demands to get their loved ones out. After seeing Elisa in a lot of pain, Rolando once again decides to go to the hospital, after asking Marta to look after her in his absence. He goes out and tries to explain his wife's situation, but is shot by the army, while Elisa dies because of her illness. Daniel receives a call, and hears Marianne's message to accept their demands. The person asks him to arrange $10 million as a ransom to get her free. The situation in the camps only gets worse with time. As the security watches over them, there has been an argument over the ransom money, as it is not equally divided among them. Marianne is taken to a separate room by one of the camp guards, who assure her to help her get out. Christian and Marta hear the news about the current situations, but are interrupted by some soldiers, who come over and tell that they have kidnapped Marianne. They ask them to arrange $80,000 if they want to see her alive. Christian informs them they cannot arrange this much money, but they are asked to go ask Marianne's family, as they know they work for them. It is announced the labor force will be getting new work permits to continue their jobs. Christian also tries to get to the office for his permit, but is not allowed to go further, and is sent back home. The torture in the camps continues, while Daniel and Alan contact the authorities and inform them about Marianne. The officials assure their help to find Marianne, but request them not to share the videos from the camp with anyone. Meanwhile, Christian and Marta succeed in getting their work permits, but everyone is asked to work only in the designated areas, while displaying their identity cards all the time. After going through a lot of security checks, they are finally taken to the work through specialized vehicles. After getting back to the house, Christian talks to Daniel and informs him that some people are asking for the ransom money for Marianne's release. Daniel discusses the situation with his father, who agrees to give money to them, but asks Daniel not to tell Victor about it. Daniel arranges money and gives it to Christian, asking him to hide it while going through the checking. At the camp, one of the detainees is told that his ransom is paid, and he is allowed to go, but soon after, they hear the gunshots and realize they shot him. Christian and Marta manage to slide money back to the house, but they are told this is just the first installment, and they need to pay another $1 million to get her out. The next day, they inform Daniel about it, but he thinks they are the ones who kidnapped Marianne and are now demanding money. He tells Victor about it, who gathers the army at their house, Soon the soldiers arrive, but the officer scolds them for taking advantage of the situation, and asks them to take them to the camps. Marianne is eventually freed from the camp, under the supervision of the army, while all the soldiers involved in this are shot. She is taken to Christian's house, where the officers shoot her and Christian, to pretend that he was the one who abducted and then shot her. Daniel is called to Christian's house, where the officer tells him about Marianne's death. Many people, including Marta, are publicly executed by the army. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this.